We're deficient in so much, and food sources are poor and lacking in nutritional values. When you lack in something, you need to turn to how can you supplement? How can you improve? What can you give the body that it needs that it's not getting? Supplementation is important. It's not that I want to live to be 150 years old, but the duration in which I do live, I want my bones, my joints, my body, my brain, everything to work well. There's a novel product which is called Z83. It's a nootropic, so it works on the brain. It's an interesting combination of just 3 products. It's very simple. It helps to energize you. There is caffeine in it, but then there's 2 other ingredients that are natural plant extracts that work together to influence your brain in reaction time, your mood. And I know there's plenty of people that say, oh, that's a bunch of BS and supplements don't work. No, they do.
And we are live. Zoe, how are you today?
Oh, I'm good. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you welcoming here.
No, I'm excited to be chatting with you. So you've got an interesting backstory. I got your pitch from the agency, and I was reading through it, and it's like, okay, you've gone through hardship, you've had adversity, you were struggling with seizures. It's like, you've overcome that. You're working alongside your husband, your entrepreneurial journeys. So am I with my wife. It's like we got a lot in common here. So give me some backstory on the seizures.
Okay, good. Well, I have to prep the audience. Sometimes I cry, sometimes I don't. So I got my tissues right here. I might blow some snot rockets here, but so it was interesting. Just to give a very quick recap because it is a lot longer of a story. So I come from a military background, moved, just know how to handle chaos, change. Hey, too bad, toughen up there, buttercup. And we learned that as kids growing up that life isn't going to stop, slow down, be nicer, be gentler. It's just not just because you're here. It's just not the way the world works. So both my parents, my dad and my mom, prior military, both retired as captains. So they deployed, we moved. I mean, I grew up in 3 or 4 different states. I never lived in one place longer than 3 years until I met my husband and got married. And then I was like, whoa, we're going on 5 years in the same place. What do I do? This is too much stability for me. But I thrived on that. I guess I was just a kid that was naturally independent, yet loyal and could be a part of something, but then also could be like I thrived in independent sports, running. I also thrived on team sports to be able to bring in your talent. So I say that as a background just because naturally military kids already experience adversity and change and challenge, and most people, especially with parents like mine where they had a progressive track record to where we did have to move DC, Colorado, Florida, back and forth, Boston, school, education, all kinds of stuff, and you don't really get a choice. So I think what a lot of military parents either struggle with or do a really good job with is, hey, I married into the lifestyle. I chose to have kids. This is what we do. And then my little brother, the little one was little, and then the littlest one was actually born in Italy. So, and the 48 months they were there, my dad was pretty much deployed for 36. He barely even made it back for the birth of the second kid. So you just learn, you learn that we can do kick and cry and complain and woe is me. It just doesn't do any good. So I actually like change and actually thrive really well in chaos and uh, less stability. Because for me, when you get through significant challenges, think about the rewards on the other end of that, and think about the lessons that you learned. Where else are you going to get lessons? And part of that is just challenge in life. So I always tried to say, okay, anytime I let something, if I think about something as it's done to me, it's always harder. So I always challenge people, why would you think that something is being done to you? Why don't you just shift it? Because as soon as you shift that definition, you can change your mindset and how you tackle it. Is that maybe it's being done for you or with you, or maybe an inadvertent way of teaching you something. So I've always tried to look at it that way. I don't know if I was taught that or just being exposed to it. absorbed it or not really sure. Can't answer that question, but I can at least say that that mindset, anytime I have my little beginnings of a pity party, I always think to myself, as soon as that sets in, like, why me? And this now leads into the seizures. Why?
Wait, before we do the seizures, did you ever like read a bunch of Stoic writings or anything like that? Like Stoic mentality? Because what you described there is like the perfect definition of Stoicism. So I would assume that you've
No,
no, it just came natural. I
that's what I
like it.
said. I don't know. I guess just being born into the kind of family that I was. I will say this though. So my dad taught lots of things, but two things that from an early age, and I remember getting the book, and I was like, holy reading this book, I remember Scott M. Peck, and it taught you how to delay gratification. And
Mm-hmm.
what kid wants to delay gratification? What does that even mean to a kid? Kids are so selfish naturally. They can't do things on their own. Look at your little kiddos, or one on the way, and the little guy, but
Mm-hmm.
they can't go operate the microwave yet and fix their own food, and you're teaching them how to do things by themselves. So the world does revolve around them. And there's a balance and a shift in that. So no, not particularly, but that delay of gratification. And then the other thing that he always taught me was, and I was very fortunate that I technically have three parents, but they all taught me work ethic. And without work ethic, what do you have? What are you here for? To do nothing? So to do things and to be great and to achieve whatever your goals are and whatever your definition of success is takes action. It takes work. And if you don't have that mindset and that work ethic, then like I said, what do you have? What are you going to achieve? What
Mm-hmm.
legacy are you going to leave? What's your purpose? How are you going to figure it out? So I don't know. I guess just through osmosis, and part of it was just the nature in which I was raised in, which was a military family. I didn't have a choice. And I'm very fortunate that I had tough parents, but tough, loving parents. And so that's just sort of what I've always been around is I always had a rock, but dang, we used to call it, we laughed and called it, had to spend some time in the chair. So my dad was a big believer that you learned and you could do by communication. And so a lot of times if it was a parent to child communication, it was behind closed doors, just you and that parent. And it was in a chair and he was on the other side of his desk because it always happened in his office or when I was trapped in the car with him and didn't have anywhere to go. So, and oftentimes I'm a tough cookie, but I'm also very emotional too. So I would always cry. I'd come home. My stepmom was like, Dick, can you please just bring her home one time where she's not like snot, boogers, tears, crying? So I had tough lessons to learn too. And part of it was with that kind of nature. So, delay of gratification, Scott Impeck. I encourage all of your readers to actually just look at the book and then think, holy crap, that was given to a 12-year-old. So it was very difficult to read. I'm not sure that I actually really read it when I was 12. I think I might have gotten through chapter one. However, in high school, I did start to read it and it did make much more sense to me. And then just that work ethic, shoulder to the wheel, nose to the grindstone. And it got me through college. It got me through issues going through the military. It got me through seizures, all that stuff. So that's just a little bit of the background. So let's jump to what happened. I was about 29 and I didn't find out exactly why. And I'm 90% sure why, but to know what happened. So I'm 29. I wake up in an ambulance and I am literally like strangling the EMT that's standing over top of me, bright white lights. I probably think I'm dead. I don't know. I'm going to see God or whatever. But I've got this guy by the neck and he's like, ma'am, breathe. Please breathe into your mask. Please, please. So all of a sudden I come to, I don't really realize what's going on. They're telling me that I've had a grand mal seizure. You've just had a seizure. Please, please, please breathe, breathe, relax. So that was like chaos to me. So anyway, this is in California. I get into the hospital. They run a CT. They run this. They do that. They test this. They are prodding me. What drugs do you do? I'm 29. I'm healthy. I'm muscular. I'm 125 pounds. I'm 5'7". I run. I work out. I eat healthy. They could see all of that stuff. And at the time, my boyfriend had then come as well, and he met us at the hospital. But he's there, and he's trying to tell her she does not do drugs. I barely even drank. I mean, like once a month to hang out with friends or whatever, even not always. And he's like, she does not do drugs. She doesn't do weed. She doesn't do cocaine. She doesn't do heroin. She doesn't do like coffee is about as much as she does of a drug. And anyway, so nurse practitioner comes in, the doctor comes in, the ER person, the this, the that. And I'm like, listen, I don't know what just happened, but it wasn't from doing drugs. And it got so frustrating that I was being challenged that that's what caused this. It's common. It's not uncommon. And I suspect that in California, and especially Southern California, it was South, like LA County area, that perhaps that happens a lot. I don't know. So anyway, I was uncontrolled, continued to have seizures, didn't know why. Here, remember when I told you about that pity party and why me? Why me? I'm healthy, I'm active, I take care of what I eat. So then I go through a battery of tests. I go to see the top neurological seizure disorder specialist, University of Maryland, UCLA. At this point, sort of through this time frame, I disconnected and separated from boyfriend. I moved back to the East Coast. My mom had deployed to Djibouti, so she was gone for a year and a half. Mind you, I'm super independent. I
Hmm.
At this time, I've gotten out of the military myself. I worked for a pharmaceutical company, got bored, moved into medical device sales, worked with, funny enough, neurosurgeons, neuro and orthopedic spine surgeons, developed a mini distributorship, worked with two of my best girlfriends, worked all up and down the East Coast. Like I said, I lived on the East Coast, met my boyfriend. He lived in California, moved out there with him for a year and a half, whatever it was. I don't even remember. And then we separated. I went back to the East Coast. Still didn't know why. So you can't drive for a year when you have seizures. So it's pretty much illegal in every state. They basically take away your license. Part of that is because you become harm. You're a
So
danger.
you having them on a regular basis then?
I was having
The
them
seizures?
regularly enough at no frequency in which was determined, understood, could say, hey, when you do this, you will have a seizure, nighttime, daytime, morning, evening. It didn't matter. It would just happen. And we never could figure out why. So I can't remember exactly how I tracked down all these specialists, but I was very fortunate because I worked in the neuro field, and most of them were spine surgeons, but neuro spine surgeons. So they understand. I went and met with one of my clients. I had an MRI. They found a little brain tumor behind my right eye and my temporal lobe. Temporal lobe issues, concerns don't typically cause grand mal seizures. If you don't know what a grand mal seizure is, it's a tonic clonic seizure. So you're out for the count. You are not dead, obviously, but everything stops. You're blacked out. You have no motor control whatsoever. I've crashed into countertops. I've split open the side of my head, 3 inches, 12 sutures, woke up in a pool of blood, um, you know, not knowing what was going on. I'm surprised I haven't had to have plastic surgery out on my face. I've busted open my cheekbone. I've split open my eyebrow. I've busted blood vessels. I've had all different kinds of things, swollen hips because I hit the ground so hard. And, you wake up and you're like, why does my elbow hurt so much? Well, you crash your elbow into the ground too. I mean, you're out. You go from being erect to you go to a noodle, and you do convulse. You can spit and foam, and you make weird sounds and things like that. So I've experienced all that. I don't know what any of it is, but there's been enough people around me that it freaks people out. So um, it's scary, and you don't know why. So pity party. You don't know why. Why me? Doctors don't know why. Can't fix it. Why me? Doctors can't fix it. Who is going to help me? Hormonal blood tests, sleep studies, you name it. I had it. light studies. And you go into this thing and you're like watching blinking lights and all this crazy stuff. Didn't trigger anything. So over that course of time, it was probably approximately 6 months or so before I really got controlled, or at least got on the right track. So I find this neuro specialist, pediatric seizure disorder specialist, but still a very, very well recognized researched neurologist. So I go and I see him. We get on this medication. Uh, it Great medication. Holy moly! I mean, talk about fatigue. I was on like a horse-sized dose because we couldn't get me controlled, so we were increasing the dose. And interestingly, I find now I'm fast forwarding through approximately a year and a half pretty quickly, but we find out I'm not getting control, partly because of my fault. I was in denial. I, at periods of time, wasn't very regular with taking my medication. So again, the woe is me part, right? Why is this happening to me? Nobody knows why. So this medication's not going to work anyway. The stupidity of your own self getting in your way. And I wasn't really listening. So anyway, I go to see the doc. He says, Zoe, are you taking your meds? No, sir, I have to be very honest with you. I was in denial. But in the last several weeks, my family was like, "You- you're too good. Grow up. Take your meds. Quit being like, so what? You have to carry this burden. And if this is going to help you, then that's what you have to do." So anyway, I started taking the meds. I go back and see him, I don't know, a month and a half later. I've already had blood work done again. It comes back normal. There's nothing wrong with my hormones. And I said, no, I'm taking my meds now. Bring your medication. Oh, I did. I had already brought it in. So he pours it into his hand and he says, this is generic. He had written me for that particular medication, branded extended release, because we couldn't figure out what was going on. The pharmacist for Anthem decided to fill it as a generic, despite the fact that it was a
Mm.
preferred branded medication, and I had it on the formulary. And so, I don't know, paid $5 versus $40. I had never used my medical insurance in my entire life, except for probably when I was a kid, when I broke my arm, or I don't know, the one or two times I ever had to go to the ER because I fell out of a tree or something. I don't know. I don't get sick. And so that was another thing too, is I'm so healthy. Why am I carrying this burden? I'm asking myself and having a little bit of a pity party through this whole year and a half. And still going to the gym, still eating healthy, still trying to do everything, relying on people because I can't drive. So relying on my parents, relying on friends. Um, that's not normal for me. Typically, people rely on me to help them. So it was this is a very strange year and a half of my life. Learned a lot of lessons, grateful for it. Also, still, oh my gosh, that was a hard time for me. And so he switches me over. I get on the phone. We went through an appeal process times three. Had to have a neurosurgeon write me an appeal. Had to have my neurologist write me an appeal. Had to threaten to sue Anthem to say, okay, here's how it's going to work, director of pharmacy. I know that I can get controlled on branded because I got 3 months of the branded after that happened and determined the generic stuff. And then they wouldn't fill it again after that. So they were going to switch me back to the generic. And I said, okay, here's how it rolls. Because 1 month I was controlled. 2 months I was controlled. 3 months I was controlled. Go to fill my prescription. And I told him, I'm going to sue you. And I'm not a litigious kind of person. But here's the deal. I know that when I'm on generics, I'm not controlled. So I've been controlled for 3 months. I'm able to then get back into the process of getting my driver's license back and start driving again. I'm going to drive because I've been controlled. And it will be your fault if something happens to me or if something happens to someone else. Do you want that liability? Approved.
Hmm.
Never had another issue. Have been controlled for, I don't know, we're approaching 10 years here soon, 8 years, something like that. So when I don't take my meds, I have had a breakthrough seizure once or twice in that period of time, and that's my fault. So I do know that if you go longer than 48 days approximately, I'll have one. So now I go through life and I say, okay, nobody knows why. Just is. God says, hey, look, you got to carry this. For some reason, maybe I'll find out at some point in my life. I go to a longevity medicine specialist. I think it's really important, especially as a female. We can talk a little bit about hormones too, but especially as a female, you really need to take care of yourself. You need to make sure that you carry muscle. You need to make sure that you eat protein. You need to make sure that you eat a balanced diet. Stop eating so much food. Stop making excuses. And I'm hard on women too, because we do have to do a lot. We gotta make babies. We gotta raise babies. We gotta try to work too. We got lots of stuff. Not that men don't, trust me. They do as well. And I very much respect a man's role in life. I'm a big believer in the family unit. You need to have influences from men and women on kids. There's and I don't care what your family looks like, but you have to have that. Sports,
Totally agree.
grandparents, parents, women figures, men figures, if you don't have that other half. I mean, it's such a dynamic, just saying that for a minute, it's very dynamic and it's pretty intense. I'm very fortunate. I have an amazing family. So I learned a lot of lessons both from the man's side of the world and from the woman's side of the world. So I very much respect my husband's role. I stand behind him. I don't stand next to him. I don't stand in front of him. And I like standing behind him because you know what? I'm pretty hard ass tough. So when he slacks a little bit, I give him a swift kick in the butt. I'm proud to be able to do that. But he stands in front, takes all the blows, takes care of our family. So it was hard for me during that seizure period just because I wasn't really dating, didn't really want to. What person, I didn't want somebody to have to bear that burden as well. So, like I said, got controlled, fast forward, got back into my life. I was very entrepreneurial. Not that I didn't want to work for somebody. I think people say, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur because I don't want to work for anybody. It's hard. But I had big goals, big aspirations. I wanted to solve big problems, and I felt like I could do that better by creating something. And so now, um, I'm very fortunate that I do get to work alongside my husband. It is not easy, so it is not glamorous. Um, we very much have a work and a love relationship. We battle, we fight. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not your wife right now. I'm your business partner. So we're going to fix this and solve this like a CEO and a president to run this company, save the company, grow the company, make big decisions, and get investment for the company, that kind of stuff. I'm not your wife. So that's hard. That's tough. But we agreed upon it and we discussed it before we decided to get into that. And then I'm his wife. Sometimes it's not 50-50. Sometimes it's 100% zero. Sometimes it's 25-75. Sometimes it is 50-50. Sometimes I carry 90% of the burden and he carries only 10. The difference is that we agreed that that imbalance cannot be accepted always. It's accepted when it's needed to be accepted and then it has to be corrected because it's not appropriate to make someone carry the biggest burden always. So we're good at that. He told me one time when earlier into our relationship where he said he's not a fighter. I tell you, he is a lover. He will do anything and everything. He is not a fighter. And I'm really tough. And sometimes you have to fight me because I'm so stubborn and he says, gumption is the best word to describe me. I've been called General Patton but sorry, I have big dreams and goals. And if you're going to get in the way of those, then you're in my way. How am I going to get you out of the way? And that's just the way that I am. I can't change that. Can I be a little softer and a little more sensitive sometimes? Yes. And I have to work on that because I will steamroll over people. And it's not that it's not I don't like you. It's more of just I have I have big goals. I want to achieve them. That's really important to me. That's important to my family. That's important to the company because I employ so many people and you got to be tough. And so that's where I think a lot of people forget that that's very much a foundation of entrepreneurship. It is not easy. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of sacrifice. So my husband knows that I have seizures, and he's always been super supportive and has always agreed and said, okay, it's a burden that you got to carry. We're on the same page. Like I said, I'm super fortunate. I do have great medical care. Medication works. We're all set. My life is great. So he's a stem cell regenerative medicine expert, orthopedist. He's helped pioneer the field over the last 20 years. I know a lot of people in that field say I'm an expert, but I'm I'm not humble when it comes to talking about him. I toot his horn and I want people to know about him because he's a great resource and he truly helps people. And so he is one of the best. And that is why people travel from all over the world: Australia, Canada, South America, Alaska, Hawaii, South Florida. Sometimes it feels like if you got to go 10 miles, it's traveling across the world because we live in the Miami area. So the traffic's so bad here. It can take an hour to go 12 miles. But I'm very fortunate to have someone that has that impact and that influence in the world, and so to have his support means a lot to me. So longevity and keeping your body healthy, and I can't wait to talk about that, brain and body. But so he had a longevity medicine specialist as his primary doctor, and so I switched over my care and went to start. That person was going to manage my care. I shared with her that I have seizures. These are medications I'm on. That's the only medication I'm really on. And so she, interestingly, and it's controversial, I don't particularly bring it up to everybody. I don't just say, hey, I had seizures and we found out why. But about 2023, I think, maybe 22, um, going for my routine biannual checkup, all's good. And we started talking about the medication, the seizures, and later on, she messaged me back and she said, hey, I need you to read these studies. There's 6 of them, and it comes actually from RFK Jr.'s Childhood Foundation, or the Children's Foundation. It showed that HPV vaccines in females has shown to cause seizures. When I was 29, by the way, I've never even had the flu shot. I never got sick. Childhood vaccines and stuff. Yes, I am vaccinated from that regard, but I don't know why when I was 29 that I, I've never, that would just was an odd decision that I would make. But, I was single. I wasn't at the time, I wasn't with anybody, and it decreases your risk of cervical cancer. And it's really important for women. And it was a new vaccine too, relatively. So it's not like childhood vaccines that have been around for 70 years kind of thing.
And you got that when you were 29? And the seizures started pretty shortly thereafter?
Yep. So, and no correlation to me. It wasn't like, oh, I went and got the vaccine and then a month later I started having seizures. It never even dawned on me until those studies were shared with me. So still don't know what the burden is, but we all have decisions. And with every single decision we make, there are consequences, positive and negative. Was it a negative consequence? I look at it like that because of now the limitations that it can put on my life. But I'm also very grateful that I still have all 4 limbs working. I still can work, take care of my family. I still can influence other people and help grow companies. And I'm not dysfunctional that way, and that I am controlled, and that I still can influence, can be part of my life, a part of other people's life. And so I'm very fortunate. I'm not, it could, so the point is it could have been way worse.
Yeah.
Something else worse to my body could have happened. So that's just sort of that's the full circle. Now, my husband always talks about causation. And so I'm like, we'll just leave it at that. Maybe it just gives me some comfort to know that, hey, these studies said that it can happen. And I took the vaccine. It happened shortly after. I have to live with it now. We leave it at that. So, like I said, I'm controlled. I'm back to working. I'm a nut job. We call him Flatline, which is funny because he's a doctor. I'm like, do you like that birthday gift? Can you give me some excitement, a little bit of emotion? I'm a giver. I would like to know whether you like the gift or not. If you don't, we're going to take it back and we're going to go get you something that we do. Me, I'm like, oh my God, I got this. It's amazing. And holy crap, I'm so excited. Oh my God, I'm crying. So it's hard to have two givers, by the way. He's a giver. I'm like, all right, look, somebody's got to be the receiver. I love receiving. I need you to love to receive too. He has a sneaky way of, hey, let's go get a different size. So we go to the shop. It gets returned. He spends the money on me. And I'm like, look, I love that and I love you, but you're taking away my excitement when you don't receive something because I love to give. So that's the health. That's the full on health. So as far as that's probably the greatest struggle that I think I've ever gotten through. I'm from a divorced family. Hey, people get divorced. So I don't have mommy issues. I don't have daddy issues. I don't have any of that stuff. It just is. And you have to, like I said, I don't know. I can't just expect a kid and you to tell them, oh, you got to just suck it up and deal with it. It's hard because you don't know how. And I was great. I mean, I had sports, I had great parents. And so I did have really good influences and guidance as a child to get through that. Yeah, did my parents fight? Were you caught in the middle of that? Yes. Is that normal? I don't know anybody that doesn't fight. So that's a whole we'd have to spend like a week talking about all that stuff. But it, I'm not perfect. I didn't come from a perfect family. We didn't have a lot of money. My dad was in the military. My biological mother, she was entrepreneurial as well, but wasn't like anybody had $1 million businesses. Then when my parents divorced, there's financial difficulties that always get. Divorcing is never clean and pretty the majority of the time. Some people do it really well. They say, hey, listen, handshake, this wasn't the right fit. Let's move on. We'll split everything down the middle. I would say that that's probably not normal. That's not the way that it usually happens. It wasn't certainly the way that my husband's divorce happened or that my parents' divorce happened. So I was very, very cognizant and cautious of the man that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. So I didn't date a lot. And if I did, it was more of just like companion style dating. And, this is not very serious. We can both go our own ways whenever. And so I'm very fortunate that I was able to. And it's a funny story. We won't get into it, but we always laugh and say it wasn't us that put us together. It was definitely God. So, I definitely believe in something, whether you think it's God or it's the universe or it's energy or whatever it is. I kind of believe it's all kit and caboodle. Is, man, you got to stay positive. This world is too dirty. It's too nasty. It's too negative. So we can't just think that it's just us. There's for me, there's bigger, greater energy. There's bigger, greater influence. There's bigger, better people that have done more than you have and use as role models. And then I always say this too. You can also look at people that have made bad decisions and use them as role models as well. What were the bad decisions? Don't do those. What was the circumstances? Don't put yourself in that circumstance. Learn from both good and bad. And that's kind of where
It's a lot more efficient when you think about it. I'm very like type A, like I carry the burden as well. I want to have control over everything and I accept full responsibility for anything good or bad. But I feel like once I surrendered to the fact that I mean, like there are other resources out there that I don't know everything, that I can actually leverage those lessons learned from others. I mean, you're way more efficient at problem solving. You can make leaps and bounds more progress than you ever could just fighting the uphill battle solo.
that's that's a prophecy essentially. I wish more people could I learned this. I love my longtime mentor was Grant Cardone, and I remember he got on stage 10X conference every year, and he got teary eyed too, and he said, "For a long time, I could never ask for help." And if there's one thing that I learned from that was ask for help. I struggled with that too. I can do things better than people because I have high expectations of myself. Not because people truly can't do it better than I can. It's just I didn't like to rely on people. I wanted to get it done. I wanted to ensure that the list the boxes were checked. And it's not, it was, people confuse it and say that it's you're a control freak. It was less about control and it was more of, I got big goals. And I know for sure that when you have big, and I don't mean like, I want to make $1 million this year. No, I want to make $250 million this year. I want my companies to generate $250 million. If they generate $250 million, I have impacted millions of people. And to me, that's my legacy that I want to leave behind. Learn from me what you can, good and bad. Struggles, how do you get through them? Mindset, positivity. Oh, trust me, I've got the negativity days too, where I have to fight those demons to say it's not happening to me. And it's more of, why is this happening? Ask the question. Understand why. Is it the circumstances? What can change? What can improve? What needs to be removed? What needs to be added? Figure those things out. Ask the questions. Solve the puzzle. Solution usually equals reward. So if you
Totally.
solve big problems, look at electricity. Holy crap. What was the reward for that, man? Look at motors, engines. Whoa, shoot. Planes, trains, automobiles. Look at, I know it shouldn't even probably bring it up because it's so controversial right now, but look at Tesla. Look at electric vehicles. Look at what solving problems can do and what it can generate. And I've always been a big believer that, great, inspirational people that have left legacies usually solved big problems. So,
Well, as they say, you aim for the moon, and even if you don't miss it, or even if you don't hit it, you at least land in the stars.
yeah.
You got to be ambitious. What's the primary company that you're working on?
So there's three actually. So my husband is still a practicing physician. So he sold out of his medical practice after Harvard. He was recruited to a very well-known orthopedic institute, arguably the number one in Vail, Colorado. So he was there for 20 years, was a partner, sold, we left. He wanted to do, he in partnership, sometimes you're restrained on what you can do. So he really needed to take the next step in regenerative medicine in regards to research. So sold out, left Vail, moved to Northern Miami, and started Karli Health Institute. And that's his medical practice. So he still sees patients all while running his biotech company that he formed in 2010, had really started working it in 2006. And that's Gray Ledge Technologies. So what that does is that helps to better understand stem cells, why they work. If you better understand why they work, then you can better formulate and create solutions of how you can treat things. He's an orthopedist, so his specialty is orthopedics. Does it have application in other fields? Yes. Sexual rejuvenation, hair. We stay away from the neurological kinds of dysfunctions, MS, kidney, liver diseases, things like that. That's not in our wheelhouse at all. But what the technology company can do is it can access the power of stem cells and put it into other specialties so that those specialists can make cellular therapies work for that disease state. So that has the opportunity to affect hundreds of millions of people across the world. So it's not just like the United States is the only place that utilizes cellular therapies and is trying to advance it. So I'm the president. He's the CEO. I really work on sales development and operations, and he's the brainchild. I get out of the way with that, man. They start talking and those PhDs and him, and I'm like, just tell me what I need to know. We'll build it out and teach me, but I'm not a part of that. So in the last 3 years, we've been able to collect enough data that has biological measurement to it. So once you take the stem cell, and we only use compliant therapies in the United States. So these cellular therapies, whether it's platelets or very different kinds of other stem cells, they come from you. And so they are able to be measured. And then if you measure them to start, you're able to optimize, concentrate them, and customize them to treat a specific thing, a specific physiological issue, something that's going on, whether it's osteoarthritis or it's a tendon issue or it's pain and musculature problems, things like that. And so you're able to then formulate it and customize it. Then you're able to measure it and verify it afterward. Once you get that validation, when you inject it, that's essentially turned into a dose. So if I dose your thumb joint versus different than your spine or your knee joint, what's the outcome? And is it predictable? And David has always believed, Dr. David Karli has always believed that there's got to be something that's predictable about utilizing cellular therapies. We don't know yet what it is. And that was his thesis essentially 20 years ago. And so in the last 3 years, we've been able to collect enough data based off of that dosing. We have dozens of physicians that in the United States that utilize that technology. We don't tell them how to treat patients. So we basically have an internal database that truly is a comparative analysis, right? It's its own, this doc does it this way, and Dr. Karli might do it entirely different. He might use a different formulation of a product to treat that. This one might use less cells, and this one uses more cells. Well, that's an internal case study that runs in parallel of each other. Which one won? Which one won the race? Who treated the patient better? And not particularly which doctor's better. It's which formulation won the outcome game. We obviously were in the name of the game of patient care. So in regards to the predictive modeling, and it's cash pay, by the way, it's not covered by health insurance. So his big thing is look, this is a return on your investment. And this is a true investment in yourself. I want to try to help get you to a point to where we can get you back and normalize things so that you can get back to your life. Maybe not cure the disease state, but at least manage it so that it doesn't have such an impact on your life where it's preventing things. So once we know that dose, then we can start to truly teach the field and say it is required that you dose cellular therapies and you validate them before you inject them. If you don't know what you're injecting, you're just blind hoping that the patient's going to get better. And
Yeah.
that's pretty standard in the field right now. And most people don't know that. Most people don't know that doctors don't really know what they're injecting because they didn't measure the final product. So they have no idea. Has it done great things? And have we gotten far in the last 30 years? Yes, we have, but that is not where it should stop. It should become more definitive, just like pharmaceuticals. If I were to give you 200 milligrams of ibuprofen, but you knew you needed 800 to help, you're out there working on the farm and your knees are hurting you. And why is my knee still hurting me? Well, if the dose was 200 and it should have been 800, did ibuprofen not work? Or was it the dose that didn't work?
It's interesting. I mean, the field of stem cell research is just like I'm hearing a lot more of it. So I feel like it's more socially acceptable. People are interested in it. They know somebody that's been benefiting from it, whether they've used it themselves or not. But it's becoming much more mainstream, it seems.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. Yes, it has, and he's very much been a part of that journey and making it better, challenging the field. He sometimes is the black sheep because people don't like to be challenged. So it definitely has been an uphill battle to convince, to delicately say to physicians that, hey, while you've been trying to do really good things, potentially the right data hasn't existed so that you can do even better. And isn't that the name of the game in medicine? We should always be learning and learning to get better, to help more people. And so fast forward, after 3 years, we have enough validated data that's very specific that we now have been able to utilize artificial intelligence to look at data retro versus perspective. So look at the data from behind, basically, and not in forward. But what that's been able to do is that's been able to help predict outcomes. We have enough doctors that have done it this way and this way and this way and this way. And so those comparative analyses, and then based off of what those doses were that were injected and what kind of demographic of the patient, overweight, drinker, what's the BMI, what's their diagnosis, all kinds of things. And by incorporating artificial intelligence, no statistician can do that 24/7, 365, anytime, taking all of those data calculations and trying to figure out, okay, what tells the better story? And then once you know the story better, what was the better solution? So
Yeah.
that's great. And then the last business, the third one is my husband's he's like, well, you brought it on yourself. You brought on all of this work on yourself. I started a supplement company about 2.5 years ago. And over the last year, it's really started to grow. On Wednesday through Friday, we will be at the Dave Asprey Biohacking Conference. We'll be at Biohackers World in July and November, both in Chicago and in Miami. We're invited. I'll be on a panel. I'll be speaking. David will be a keynote speaker. So I'm very fortunate. And I told you, make sure you remind me that I talk about brain health. So I think we've now arrived at brain health. I'm super passionate for varying reasons about the stem cell company. One, it's that I do get to help my husband's dream come true and his passion and what he's been able to do and develop over the field. And a lot of people have doubted him and challenged him and stolen from him. And so I am we laugh because he's my lion and I'm very much the lioness. And if anybody knows about female lions, they're pretty aggressive. So I'm super protective of him and I want his success and I want him truly to win. So supplementation goes hand in hand with health. So with longevity and cellular health and things like that. So we wanted to make sure that we could give people high quality products. And I know for sure that the people that I work with and the raw material manufacturers, and like I told you, the founder and inventor of creatine as we know it, it's a number one sports supplement that's been studied since 1998, 99. And what he's been able to do for the field, I get to say that I'm very fortunate to be able to work with somebody like that. And a nutritional biochemist that, oh my God, the guy can cite any kind of paper, and so can David in his field. And so I'm very fortunate that from the cellular medicine perspective and from the biochemical part of nutrition and food and supplementation and what it does for your body and deficiencies and supplementing it to get it healthier. What are the right combinations? What should we be doing? And just the sheer understanding of what supplements do, the longevity aspect that they can have. And I know there's plenty of people that say, oh, that's a bunch of BS and supplements don't work. No, they do. Because look at it from the perspective of look at what RFK Jr. is trying to do. Remove crap, essentially, from our food sources and improve our food sources. Why? Because we're deficient in so much, and food sources are poor and lacking in nutritional values. And so when you lack in something, you need to turn to how can you supplement? How can you improve? What can you give the body that it needs that it's not getting, essential and non-essential? So that's part of that was my passion project that now has come to life. And again, to solving solutions. And so if I can make this company successful, then it's much bigger than me. It's that I get to affect millions of people's lives. And so I'm actually, my husband and I just had this conversation this morning. He was reading a book about become a TED talker kind of thing. And, what's your passion and what are you going to do with that passion? And I'm very fortunate that I have somebody like him that challenges me on those hard questions. Cause I'm like, I don't know. I'm just really good at executing things. I'm really good about making, lists and checking them off. That's
Mm-hmm.
I don't stare at the list. You can see when you look through my book, there's highlights and there's scribble scrabble and there's big circles and there's arrows. And then whatever didn't get done on that list goes on to the next one. And the challenge is those things better not keep rolling over. Keep rolling over. Goals can keep rolling over, but not the things that get you to achieving the goals. So supplementation is important. I want to live. It's not that I want to live to be 150 years old. But the duration in which I do live, I want my bones, my joints, my body, my brain, everything to work well. I don't want any of those things to slowly decline to where when you get to your 70s and you're wanting to be with your grandkids, your knees hurt, your shoulders hurt, you don't sleep well, you're gaining weight, you're sluggish, you don't have energy. I don't want to be complaining about those things when I'm 50, 60, 70, 80 years old. I want to be peppy. I want to have energy. I want to be a part of something. So,
What are the primary supplements that you're creating with that company and that you use on a regular basis yourself?
Yep. So Zeta Body is the company. It actually went through a name and a brand morphing and ZETA. And there's a fun story about that. But so there's a novel product which is called Z83, and it's a nootropic. So it works on the brain and whatever the outcome that the brain produces. So it's an interesting combination of just three products. It's very simple. And what those three products do from a synergistic effect is really, it helps to energize you. One, there is caffeine in it, but then there's two other ingredients that are natural plant extracts that work together to influence your brain in reaction time, your mood. One, it's called Zimbrin. One is very much acts like a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So it acts like an antidepressant. So the way that it works on on your brain is so that you and I were talking about this earlier, which is, look at how overwhelmed everybody is. Look at how overstimulated everyone is. Look at how anxious our society and our culture has become. And part of it, as I always laugh, is this thing doesn't help. We are so attached to this thing. I pay attention because I live in the Miami area. So people walk and they use Uber and things like this. I can't tell you how much I see this crossing the street, like they are paying attention to this and walking with the red hand sign up. And I'm like, okay, so let's make sure that the car pays attention for you instead of you paying attention to the car, the 6,000-pound vehicle that can hit you because you're crossing illegally in a crosswalk. Like, you just see it. Everyone is so focused on themselves and completely unaware of what's going on. The phone and the computer and technology has done amazing things. But with that, it has also done detrimental things to our culture. Everything is expected to be like this. And our kids are being greatly affected. We talked about that too. This is what people put in their hands to occupy them. This is what then enables parents and teachers and things like that to do other things, not books and board games and going outside and climbing trees and building tree forts and making up silly games and going out and playing street hockey and things like that. I feel like that culture has shifted so much, and that social media, you're so stimulated by it, and then you're so affected by it because it can share information so quickly. Good information, bad information, emotional information. Kids are mean. People are mean. They want to constantly pick and poke, and it's easy to hide behind the computer and make fun of somebody or hurt somebody. It's easy to also propagate positivity. And so while I say it's had detrimental effect on our culture, it's also had a significant and powerful and positive effect. So how do I help decrease the negative and increase the positive? And so the ability to mitigate somebody's mood and help them to utilize serotonin in the correct way and to help truly that feel good sense. And then also it helps increase reaction time. That's been studied too with the other product, which is Amatia Max, and polyphenols from plant extracts. It's a cool history from South America. The extract comes from these specific tribes and was used as a tea-like substance. And it was used before going out and hunting. And people felt like they were much more acutely aware of something, could react faster. And so I've been very fortunate that most people that utilize it tell me, I feel good. I'm energized. We talked about brain health. We talked about what's happened to me. I don't know what the long-term effects of one, taking this medication, and two, having so many seizures are going to be, but I've certainly had some concussions, that's for sure. And I need to do everything that I can for anything that I put in my body that's going to help my brain and that's going to help my body. So some of the other key supplements, vitamin D, I'm very passionate about that. That's a great longevity supplement. And then I have a lot of foundational supplements because I want people to know that they can come to a brand and trust that brand. I work with some of the best raw material manufacturers in the world, but also here in the United States where a lot of my stuff is produced, which is great because while I am not the cheapest, I will tell everybody that you can go to Costco and you can get a gallon bucket of fish oil. Why is it so cheap? Where did it come from? Can you answer those questions? And I can, and I know where they are. And so there's value in that, which has a price tag as well. So I know there's a lot of people that are like, this is too expensive. I'm not going to take it. I don't even know if it works. Well, I will tell you this. You need to be on a good D3 supplement, and D and K is what we make, because it has shown because humans are so deficient, and partly because of this, because you're sitting in your house playing this all the time. You're not outside. And sun, and the synthesis of sun and what it does through your skin. And then in regards to cholesterol, D3 is actually not a vitamin. It's a precursor to a hormone. So when you do take that supplement, it basically then turns into, there's a cascade that it goes through, and then it does turn into an active hormone, which helps to mitigate calcium. So essentially it's bringing calcium in, and then when you combine it with K, that is then telling calcium where to go. This is all very much the layman's term, obviously. And what do we need calcium for? Bones, teeth. What attaches to bones? Muscle. What do we need creatine for? Very much to regenerate ATP, energy. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, neurocognitive function. Creatine is huge. If I cannot emphasize enough that women, and I love my men, like I said, but women we got some issues with hormones for sure. Premenopause, menopause, perimenopause. You've got all kinds of stuff that starts happening from like mid-30s to like late 50s kind of thing. D3, huge. Every human, basically, after I've watched him do so many blood tests and get people on the right track with their hormonal axis, because it does affect cellular health and the therapies that he provides, that pretty much every human is deficient in it, because our food quality, but then we're not spending enough time outside. And so you need to ingest D3. It's shown that if you are deficient, you have a higher risk of cardiovascular disease. What's cardiovascular disease? It's not just heart attacks. It's diabetes. It's being pre-diabetic. It's being varying different kinds of, it affects inflammation. So it affects, like I said, risk of heart attack, things like that. Also immunity. So it's super important. And then in combination with creatine, the cell therapy, the neurocognitive benefits, the energy, being able to help muscle create that energy, recover faster. No, when you take creatine, it's probably the number one question I get, especially from women. I don't want to get huge and bulky.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you
It's funny because like creatine, I don't know. I feel like that was what was talked about, in the high school locker rooms for guys, the equivalent to steroids. But I feel like, at least in my space, the keto, carnivore, low carb space, like it's become much more widely used
Huge.
and appreciated, both male and female, because they're now starting to talk about the neurological benefits of it as well. So yeah, I mean, anybody would benefit from supplementing with creatine, because you can't possibly reach a saturation point if you're just relying on the creatine naturally occurring in the meats you're consuming. You have to supplement it to reach that saturation point.
Well, and the interesting thing is come on, let's be realistic. Let's remove the bodybuilders. Let's remove the people that truly are in the gym to truly generate muscle. Let's remove those, because let's be realistic. It's approximately 50% of our United States population, approximately 350 million people. So half of that is obese. So I don't think that those people, and again, too, there's a lot of bodybuilders that have a significant BMI that are also considered obese if you just did the basic calculations. But so we'll remove those. But just in our general population, too much visceral fat, too much food is being eaten, an imbalance of carbohydrates to proteins and to vegetables. I mean, if you don't like vegetables, my husband laughs, because a good friend of ours, he's a big dude, former national wrestler, and he's like, don't really like vegetables because it takes up too much space for the things that I do like protein and meat. And so we always laugh, because I have a great phytonutrient product. It's a simple powder. You just put it in water or smoothie, or this is what I call my beauty juice, which I'll tell you what's in there. But it's you have to do it, and you have to spend the money to do it. And unfortunately, potentially it'll get better in the next decade or whatever. I know food's expensive, and I know that bad food's cheap. And I know that there's a cost analysis that you have to do. But in my opinion, if you were to only take 2 to 4 supplements, it would be D3, 5,000 IUs is great. That some people need 10,000, but I think that's a very fundamental base that you can start. You wouldn't know if you needed more unless you're doing your blood panels and doing constant, you going in and getting your hormones measured and doing that biannually. So January and June, something like that. That way you can see how the levels are changing in the blood. But for the most part, 5,000 IUs, that's good. Creatine, I think the studies show typically between 3 and 5 grams a day is beneficial, and it's the world's most studied sports supplement. As like you said, it was known in the locker room as, I need to take this to get big bulky muscles. I always kind of chuckle and say, you don't just generate muscle.
Yeah.
You have to stress the muscle in order to generate strength, in order to generate size and things.
It'd be nice if it was that easy.
I would love, holy cow, man, I'd be drinking this stuff all day long and never, I have so much stuff to do and I never had to go to the gym. Great. Although I do like going, but my schedule can prevent it sometimes. But, and then it's protein. And I know that, so it's interesting that we were just talking about it, and Anthony, he's the our business partner that I was talking about in regards to creatine. But we kind of chuckle because what happened to our society? And if you think about it, and I don't know exactly when it happened, but let's just say it happened in the 80s. You didn't hear about all of these cardiovascular disease states in the 40s and the 50s and 60s. People were outside. They had more labor jobs. They, just in general, they were outside more. And I don't know, I guess our food, the substances, the things that we didn't have all of these artificial things that were going into our food. Dyes, preservatives, it just didn't exist. It wasn't made yet. Now, granted, we're feeding a lot more people in the world, and farms. It is a huge cascade of events. It is not just one thing. But I think that's why supplements are so important too. Is that okay? Well, me personally can't fix a lot of those problems, but I definitely can control what I put in my body.
Yeah.
And so protein is the other thing. Amino acids, obviously, those are precursors to protein. So I struggle. I'll be honest. I struggle with getting enough protein. Just call me approximately 128, 130 pounds, something like that. I struggle getting 130 grams. So, I'm doing everything from trying to drink bone broth. The one I drink has 19 grams. I try to eat chicken and fish and eggs and all that stuff, but I have to be honest, with 3 companies and building and growing things, I forget to eat. And I'm the exact opposite of a lot of people. I am not an emotional eater. When I'm emotional or when I'm super stressed out and cortisol is high, that is the last thing I'm thinking about, truly. I'm a good water drinker, electrolytes. So in the beauty juice, I told you it's a scoop of my fruits and veggies, protein, so phytonutrients. So you're getting a lot of the prebiotics, probiotics, a lot of the benefits from vegetables. A lot of people don't like vegetables. So, the cruciferous vegetables help decrease inflammation. So it's very simple and easy solution to a lot of that. And 1 scoop of creatine. So I do drink 5 grams a day. A scoop of amino acids. I don't put protein powder in this, and this is really just an easy liquid, makes water taste good. And then I use an electrolyte packet. I don't make the electrolyte packet. I make everything else that goes in there, but I use Auth, AUTH. I like them a lot. And, your electrolytes, one, make water taste good in general, because there's plenty of people I know that are like, oh God, water is so boring. There's no flavor to it. And for me, I'm like, I can drink water plain. I can eat cold food. I could eat the same 10 things every day for the rest of my life. I get chastised a lot too, is that I don't live to eat. I don't, what is it? I don't live to eat. I eat to live. So
Yeah.
I'm a nibbler. I don't like eating a lot of food at once. I don't know, when I feel full, I'm like, oh my God, I ate too much food. So I'm very much I would eat half of what's on my plate, and then, a little teeny Tupperware this big, I'd put the rest of it in there, and my husband laughs because I'll just an hour or two later, I'll go grab it and grab a fork and not even put it in the microwave and just eat it cold, including fish. So he thinks a lot of those things are really weird. I'll eat cold eggs that sat out on the counter for 2 hours. I just I don't think a lot of people can say, oh, those are great habits. Let me assume those. I think people like to eat food hot usually and such, but I call this my beauty or my handsome juice because it puts a lot of the things that we need in one easy canister, and you can make it as potent or as watered down as you want. And then protein. And by the way, I love red meat. So it's great for women, especially if there's iron deficiencies. It's a very easy way to get iron. I can't take iron supplements. It constipates me. And I have tried every form and every way of doing it. A little bit in the morning, a little bit in the afternoon, a little bit in the evening. And the only way that I can really get not be deficient and get the amount that I need is red meat. And I love bison. I would take bison any day of the
Yeah,
week
bison
over
good.
leaner than a lot of the ground meat that you can get. If you do get and use ground meat, obviously I encourage upper 90s, so like 93.7 if you can find it. Ground turkeys, chickens. I have to say this. I don't know that a lot of people, the crock pot has made a resurgence in our house because David's 245 pounds, 6'3", working out. He has big body goals too. And I'm like, I cannot cook enough to keep up with you. I'm putting like 6 chicken breasts on a baking sheet and throwing it in the oven. And I'm like, oh gosh. And he's not a big fish person. So that makes things actually easier because you can cook meats like turkey and ground meats and
Oh yeah, batch cooking's the way to go.
put it,
Instant pot,
put it in
slow cooker, it makes it easy.
So, and then he'll pull it out and heat it up and all that stuff. But crock pot, man, it's great. He loves when I shred chicken, and he has a little bit of a different balance of carbs and proteins. But so I just throw 5, 6, 7 chicken breasts in there and pour a bunch of broccoli on top of there, and maybe throw some cabbage in there and some celery or whatever. And I put some chicken broth in there or some bone broth in there and a bunch of spices, and then 4 hours high, and in about 2 or 3 hours, I go in there and I shred all the chicken, and then I pour some pasta in there. And it soaks up all the juice, and it makes it like this mac and cheesy chicken dish or whatever, and he eats the snot out of it. So stews, like I said, it's made a resurgence. So and the oven has not gotten a lot of activity recently because I just throw it in there and put it in Tupperware and throw it in the fridge.
That works. That works. Rock and roll. I mean, get your proteins in, get your calories in, 100%.
Yep.
What was the name of the supplement company one more time?
Zeta Body, Zeta,
Nice.
and it's zetabody.com.
I will check it out for sure. I will
Yeah.
check it out. What else is in the pipeline for? What's got you excited going into the rest of the year?
Well, actually, I'm working on it right now, and we have the formulation. It's just I'm working on the investment up front. We have a delactosed protein powder, which I am a lactard. I cannot tolerate lactose. Doesn't do good things to this body. So, but I do realize that, especially my husband, he says that vegan protein tastes like earth, and he's not a big fan of that. So it's hard to make vegan protein not taste good. I think I've found some proteins that do taste good, but it's very gritty. It's hard to make beans and rice not. It's hard to make them smooth. So I get it. I understand that. And then whey protein has that creamy mouth feel, and I know that, and I know it tastes really good, but I can't have it. So delactosed is very different than lactose free. So what it does is it's to keep it very simple, it just breaks down the proteins in a different way so that it's tolerable if you cannot process lactose. But it keeps all of the structure of whey because it's a very easily absorbed a form of protein. And then, you have your isolate and things like that. So it removes all of that. It's a pure protein. I go back and forth about, I can't drink it. Why can I not drink it? And so how can I help people that can't drink it like me. And, if you're vegan, obviously you don't drink that. But if you drink vegan protein because you can't drink lactose whey
Right.
protein, then it's great. And then you can put it in pancakes and you can put it in baking things and you can do all that kind of stuff and add protein to that as well. So that's the next big pipeline product for Zeta. It's interesting though. It's very expensive to make protein because you have to literally almost become a drug dealer. You've got to buy kilos of raw material to make it at a time. You can't just buy like a quarter of a kilo and make your beta version of it, and you gotta buy a lot. So that's the one factor. I'll pull the trigger when I'm ready to go, but it's exciting because we did make a little beta launch with it and everyone loved it. There were several people that had said this is the best protein I've ever drank. So Anthony is a really, 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 really good flavor formulator as well. So we played around with a lot of different flavors, put a little bit of cinnamon, what are we going to do? We're going to use French vanilla. We're going to use vanilla, and what combination and what formulation and how much of it. And so by the time I was done, I was like, they all taste the same. I can't, it's like smelling colognes after you get to cologne number 4. You're like, I don't know, just whichever one, which was it, buy it. That's that. So that's exciting. And then all of the other companies are growing and expanding. It sometimes feels like a freaking boulder that you were pushing up a very large mountain where you cannot see the top. And that's hard sometimes, and especially when it rolls back and falls on you. And then you got to do it all. You got to get up and do it all over again and figure out, okay, what's not working. So that has happened with all 3 companies. The nootropic I'm super excited about. That's the hero of your day. Take it in the morning. That's what I do. I don't even eat yet. That's the first thing I do. And I wake up and I can feel it and it energizes you. And then throughout the day, depending if it's morning or night, I do my regular longevity medicine supplementation regimen. So it's a great combination. There is a code that's going on right now. It's Asprey20. It'll get you 20% off because I am headed to the biohacking conference in just a couple days. So I am offering.
I was actually going to go to that as well. We're going to have a booth set up and I was going to speak. But with our second son coming like any week now, I pushed the pause on that one, but I was going to be able to see you there.
Bummer. Yeah, we have a booth, and then moving. It was great. I got interviewed and I was honored to be offered a spot to come, which was great. And actually, it was really cool too. The chief science officer of one of the raw material companies that I work with, she also was on the Dave Asprey show. So it was great. Nice. Indirectly, Zeta got referenced, and they have a product landing page that had a lot of good things for the body. And I literally sold out of couple hundred, or not a couple hundred, like 90, 80 bottles, something like that in like 2 days. So it was great just because people were like, oh, they're talking about it on Dave Asprey. So that's one of the good things about utilizing and being able to work with influencers, because they have an impact and they have a voice. And if you have a product or a solution that echoes that voice and can contribute to that impact and has the same mission, can help solve problems, then I'm happy to be a part of that broadcast.
100%. Well, Zoe, I really appreciate the time. Yeah. Next year I should be there for sure. Have a blast there without me. Just enjoy it, soak it all up, change some lives, make an impact for sure.
Well, that I will do. That's a mission and a goal. I would like to also give. I'll send it to you. Maybe you can post it in the podcast notes. But there's another code that I'd love to offer your audience too, and that's subscribe, and then you can save more. And I'll give you a code. And obviously you can cancel anytime. You can delay your subscription, things like that. So even if you just want to try it for one order, use the code so you can get more savings.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes for sure. Well, again, I really do appreciate the time. Thanks so much. Learned a lot, and keep in touch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for having me. I hope your guests could learn something.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, Zoe. Till next time. Take care.
You too.